You know, I've always believed that your family's home is supposed to be your sanctuary, the one place in this whole wide world where the locks are always open for you, a safe harbor. But let me tell you something I learned the hard way at 18 years old. Sometimes the storm doesn't come from the outside. It's already brewing in the living room. And my personal hurricane had a name, Sasha. It was 2 days before my first final exam, physics. I could still smell the highlighter ink on my notes, feel the cramp in my hand from writing too fast. My entire future was balancing on the grades from this 1 week. The tension in the house was so thick you could practically chew on it. But it wasn't because of my exams. Oh no. I remember walking into the kitchen to get a glass of water, my head spinning with formulas. And there they were, my mom, my stepdad Jacob, and my half-sister Sasha sitting at the table. They had these faces, like they'd just won the lottery and someone had died, all at the same time. Sasha had this little smirk she couldn't quite hide, her hand resting on her stomach. I didn't need a pregnancy test to confirm it. The announcement hung in the air, unspoken but deafening, and then Jacob dropped the bomb. Not with anger, but with this cold, clinical detachment that was somehow so much worse. He said, "Your sister needs her old room back. It's time for you to make a sacrifice for this family." Sacrifice. That word echoed in the dead silence of the kitchen. The clock on the wall ticked. Tick, tock, like a countdown to the end of my life as I knew it. My own mother just looked at her hands, refusing to meet my eyes. She couldn't even look at me. I wish I could tell you I handled it with grace, but I didn't. I was 18, terrified, and my entire world was being ripped out from under me days before the most important tests of my life. I yelled. I screamed that Sasha had never treated me like family, so why on earth would I sacrifice for her? I called them crazy, and that's when the mask finally slipped. Jacob's voice went ice cold. "You will be out by the end of the week, or you will be thrown out. This is my house, my rules. You're an adult now. Nobody can stop me." I looked at my mother, my own mother, waiting for her to stop this madness. And you know what she said? She said, "Jacob is right. We need to make space for our real grandkids. We don't have the energy for this drama." Real grandkids. Those 2 words, they were like a physical blow to the chest. I actually stumbled back a step. In that moment, every suspicion I'd ever had, every cold Christmas morning, every birthday where I felt like an afterthought, it all crystallized into one painful, undeniable truth. I was not part of their family. I was a guest who had overstayed her welcome. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I turned around. I walked up to my room, the room I'd grown up in, and I started shoving my life into a suitcase. Textbooks, clothes, a framed photo of me and my best friend. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely zip it shut. And the whole time, silence. No one came up to stop me. No one called my name. Nothing. Just the sound of my own heart shattering. I walked out of that house, my suitcase wheels clacking on the pavement behind me like it was applauding my exit. I didn't know where I was going. I had nowhere to go. The only thing I knew was that I had a physics exam in 36 hours. And my entire life was in a rolling suitcase. I showed up on my best friend's doorstep, tears finally breaking through, my voice a broken whisper. They kicked me out, but that was just the beginning of the story. Because the why, the real, twisted, gut-wrenching why they did it and why, a year later, they suddenly wanted me back. That's a tale that involves decades of lies, a secret affair, and a house that was never really theirs to begin with. You need to understand the players on this board to really get the game they were playing. My family was never the Brady Bunch. It was more like a badly written soap opera where I was the unpaid extra who kept getting forgotten on set. Let's start with Jacob, my stepdad. To call him cold would be like calling a blizzard a bit chilly. The man had a heart of pure, polished granite. He wasn't abusive, not in the way you see in movies. He was just absent. Emotionally, you know. He provided a roof, food, the bare minimum required by law, I guess. But love, affection, a simple good job after a school play, not a chance. I was a ghost in his house, a piece of furniture that occasionally needed to be fed. I learned to make myself small, quiet, invisible. It was the only way to avoid the sigh of annoyance when I walked into a room he was in. And then there was Sasha, my half-sister, 6 years older. If Jacob was ice, Sasha was the wind that made the cold cut right through you. She mastered the art of the subtle dig, the backhanded compliment, the look of pure disdain she'd shoot me when our mom wasn't looking. She never hit me, but she didn't have to. She made it perfectly clear that I was an inconvenience, a mistake that cramped her style. She was the golden child, the firstborn, the one who could do no wrong in Jacob's eyes. Their bond was a closed circuit, and I was never, ever invited to join. My mom? Ah, my mom. The biggest mystery of them all. She was warm sometimes, inconsistent. She'd have these bursts of affection, buy me my favorite ice cream, tell me she loved me. But it was like she had a switch in her head, and whenever Jacob or Sasha entered the room, click, the warmth would shut off. She'd become distant, distracted. She saw how they treated me. She had to have seen it, but acknowledging it would have meant causing a problem, and my mother would rather have walked on hot coals than cause a problem for Jacob or Sasha. So she became the queen of excuses. Oh, that's just how Jacob is. Sasha doesn't mean it. She's just stressed. She preached about us being a family while she watched them treat me like a stranger. She was so desperate to keep their little trio happy that she was willing to sacrifice me to do it. For years, I tried. God, did I try. I'd try to laugh at Jacob's dry jokes. I'd ask Sasha about her friends, her life. I'd try to insert myself into their conversations. The rejection was a constant, quiet hum in the background of my life. A turned shoulder. A conversation that died the second I walked in. Eventually you learn. You stop trying. You eat dinner quickly and retreat to your room. You celebrate your birthdays with your friends because you know the one at home will be a quiet, awkward affair where you feel like you're imposing. And our house, I always wondered about that house. It was too nice. Way too nice for a receptionist and a guy in sales. It was in a good neighborhood with manicured lawns. Jacob's office, my old room. It had these built-in bookshelves, fancy French doors. I used to think they were just really good with money. But now I know it was all a facade. A beautiful stage set for their perfect little family play, paid for by someone else. But back then, I was just a kid trying to navigate the minefield. I built a life outside those walls. My best friend, Chloe, her family, they were my real sanctuary. Her house was loud and messy and full of laughter. They argued and made up. They hugged for no reason. I practically lived there anyway, just to breathe the air. So when Sasha showed up pregnant at 24, I shouldn't have been surprised. When they decided her comfort was more important than my final exams, my home, my stability, I should have seen it coming. But a small, stupid part of me, that little girl still craving her mother's love, held out hope. I thought, this is so crazy, so obviously wrong, that surely my mom will snap out of it. She'll put her foot down. But she didn't. She chose them. Again. And with those two words, real grandkids, she finally confirmed what I had feared my entire life. In her eyes, I never really was one of them. But the story of that house and the real reason they came crawling back a year later, that's where the plot gets truly twisted. It involves a secret my mother kept for almost 2 decades, and 2 people I never knew were fighting to find me. The next year of my life was a blur of survival. A brutal, beautiful, terrifying lesson in how to build a life from the scraps someone else threw away. Chloe's family, they were my angels. They didn't just open their door, they opened their entire lives to me. Her mom, Susan, she sat me down that first night with a cup of tea that I was too shocked to even drink. She looked me right in the eyes and said, "You are safe here. This is your home now for as long as you need it. We've got you." And they meant it. They gave me a key. They set a place for me at the dinner table every single night without fail. They celebrated my graduation like I was their own. Their cheers the loudest in the entire auditorium. They showed me what a family is supposed to do, not just what it's supposed to look like. But their kindness also came with a crushing weight of reality. I was 18. I was broke. College wasn't just a dream now. It was a financial cliff I was staring down. The scholarship applications felt like I was begging for my future. I'd stay up late, the glow of my laptop the only light in Chloe's spare room, filling out form after form, pouring my entire life story into little text boxes, hoping it was enough to convince a stranger I was worth the investment. When that scholarship letter finally came, I remember my hands shaking so hard I could barely tear the envelope. The words, "We are pleased to inform you," blurred behind a wall of instant grateful tears. It wasn't a full ride, but it was a life raft. Susan and her husband, Mark, they didn't even hesitate. They co-signed my student loan, an act of faith so enormous I still get choked up thinking about it. I promised them. I promised myself I would pay back every single cent. So I started working, waitressing. The smell of grease and coffee got into my clothes, my hair. My feet ached constantly. I'd come home after a double shift, reek of French fries, and then crack open my textbooks, my eyes straining to stay open. It was exhausting. It was relentless. But for the first time, it was all mine. Every tip I earned, every grade I scraped. It was built on my own sweat, not someone's begrudging obligation. There's a strange power in that, a grim, gritty pride. I heard things, of course, through the grapevine of mutual friends. Sasha had the baby, a girl. My parents were doting grandparents, flooding social media with pictures of their perfect, complete little family in their perfect, spacious house. I'd see the photos sometimes, and it was like looking at a postcard from a country I'd been deported from. I felt nothing, and that was the most surprising thing of all. The anger had burned out, leaving behind a cool, quiet emptiness. They were just people I used to know. And then the email came. It was from my mother. The subject line was just, "Hi." My finger hovered over the delete button for a full minute. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. I opened it. It was wrong. That's the only way to describe it. The tone was so sugary sweet it felt artificial, like saccharine. She missed me. Jacob missed me. Sasha missed me. They'd done some soul-searching and realized they'd treated me unfairly. They wanted to mend fences. They wanted me to come home for the weekend. Every single alarm bell in my body started ringing at once. This wasn't my mother. This was a performance, a badly written script. My mom didn't do soul-searching. She did whatever was easiest for Jacob. This was a trap. I could smell it through the screen. I closed the laptop. I didn't reply. A second email came a few days later, more desperate. "Please, we just want to talk." Delete. I was dying to know what the angle was. What did they want? Money? A babysitter? It had to be something. But I held my ground. I had built this new life, brick by painful brick, and I wasn't about to let them kick down the walls. The answer didn't come from them. It came from a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. A voice I had never heard in my entire life, shaky with age and emotion, said the words that would finally unravel my mother's entire web of lies. "Hello? Is this Lily? This is your grandmother." And just like that, the ground shifted beneath my feet. The real story, the one hidden behind 20 years of secrets, was about to be told. And it started with a simple, devastating truth. The house they kicked me out of, it was never theirs to begin with. I stared at my phone, that unfamiliar number burning a hole in my screen. A grandmother? I had grandparents? My whole life the story was that they were these cold, heartless people who disowned my mom for having Sasha. They were the villains of our family fairy tale. But the voice on the other end of the line, it didn't sound cold. It sounded soft. It sounded heartbroken. "We've been trying to find you for so long, sweetheart," she said. And I could hear the genuine emotion, a tremor of years of pain in those few words. We arranged a video call. My hands were sweating. Part of me was still convinced this was some elaborate trick. But when the screen connected, I saw them. Two elderly faces lined with age and what looked like worry. And the second their eyes focused on me, they both just welled up. Tears started streaming down my grandmother's cheeks, and she just put her hand over her mouth, whispering, "Oh, she looks just like Eleanor did at that age." Eleanor, my mother. They held up these old, leather-bound photo albums, pictures of my mother as a little girl, riding a bike with training wheels, as a teenager with a ridiculously large hairstyle, grinning at the camera. They weren't just stories anymore. They were real. This was real. And then they dropped the first bomb. The reason they hadn't spoken to my mom for all those years had nothing to do with them rejecting Sasha. They'd been thrilled to become grandparents. The problem was always Jacob. Back then, he was deep into drugs and alcohol. A real piece of work. They gave my mom an ultimatum. "We will support you and that baby with everything we have, but you have to leave him. He is not good for you." And for a while, she listened. She broke up with him. They helped her get full custody of Sasha. They even set her up on a date with a nice young man, my biological father. The story my mom told me? About him wanting her to terminate the pregnancy with me. A complete and utter lie. The truth was, they were happy together. They got married. He was excited to be a father. But Jacob, he cleaned up his act. Just enough. And my mother, she never really got over him. She started an affair with him while she was married to my dad. I wasn't a planned baby, but I also wasn't an unwanted mistake. I was the result of her affair. When she got pregnant with me, she had to come clean. It was her infidelity that destroyed her marriage, not my father not wanting me. My dad, he fought for me. He had partial custody when I was a baby. He wanted me. He loved me. The man I thought had abandoned me, he was actually stolen from me. And when he died in that car crash, it was the perfect tragedy for my mother to rewrite history. It sealed me into her new life with Jacob, a life built on a foundation of lies. The second bomb was the house. That beautiful house I grew up in, the one I was kicked out of. My grandparents bought it. 6 years ago, when my mom and Jacob hit rock bottom financially, my mom finally swallowed her pride and called them. My grandparents, still hoping to reconnect, still wanting to be in our lives, bought the house outright. For her. For us. Their only condition was that they could be a part of our lives again. My mother and Jacob took the house and then shut the door in their faces. Again. They strung them along for years with excuses, never letting them visit, only sending the occasional photo to keep them quiet. My grandparents, heartsick and humiliated from the constant rejection, eventually stopped trying. They just hoped we were happy in the house they provided. But then, my grandfather had a health scare. A bad one. It makes you realize life is too short for pride. So they decided to just show up, to fight for their family one last time. They arrived at the house they owned, and my mother had no choice but to let them in. They asked about me. My mom, flustered, said I was away at a college she couldn't name, that I was too fragile to talk. Their decades of parental intuition screamed that something was wrong. After they left, they asked a neighbor, who told them the truth, that I'd been kicked out a year ago. The fury my grandfather felt. He said it was a miracle his heart didn't give out right then and there. All those years of providing, of hoping, and they had thrown their own daughter out onto the street, the daughter they had fought so hard to find. So they made a decision. They were evicting them. They were taking back their house. But before they did, they wanted to talk to me. This was my life, my history, my trauma. They told me the choice was mine. I could give my family a chance to stay, or I could give them the same mercy they gave me. I listened to all of this, my own tears drying on my cheeks, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Every lie I'd been fed, every manipulated memory, every moment of feelingless then. It all made sense now. The puzzle was finally complete and the picture it revealed was ugly. They didn't reach out to me because they felt guilty. They reached out because they were about to lose their free ride. My mother's sweet emails weren't an apology. They were a Hail Mary pass to save her own skin. I knew what I had to do. The choice was already made. I didn't hesitate. Not for a second. The choice my grandparents laid before me wasn't really a choice at all. It was justice, finally served on a silver platter after a lifetime of waiting. I took a deep breath, the kind that fills your lungs after you've been underwater for too long. I want them out, I said, my voice clear and steady, surprising even me. They made their choice a year ago. They don't get to live in a house you provided while the person you actually bought it for was sleeping on a friend's couch. I could hear my grandmother's soft sigh of relief on the other end of the line. They weren't cruel people. They just needed to know I had the strength to protect myself now. They needed my permission to do what they knew was right. Okay, sweetheart, my grandpa said, his voice firm with a newfound resolve. Okay, we'll handle it. And handle it they did. The legal wheels began to turn. Eviction notices aren't polite emails. They're cold, hard, official documents. I heard through the grapevine that absolute chaos erupted. The performative sweetness my mother had sent my way turned to pure, unfiltered venom. I got another email. This one wasn't pretending anymore. It was a torrent of rage. She called me every name in the book. She said I was a spiteful, ungrateful brat who was destroying the family. And then she wrote the sentence that finally, completely, severed any last invisible thread I felt to her. I wish you had been in that car with your father. The world would have been better off. I read those words sitting at Chloe's kitchen table, and I felt nothing. No pain, no anger, It was like reading a weather report for a country I'd never visit. She wasn't my mother anymore. She was just a bitter, cruel woman facing the consequences of her own life. I deleted the email and blocked the address. I was done. The day they finally moved out, my grandparents went over to ensure they didn't damage the property. They said the silence in the house was deafening. All the life, what little there had been, was gone. The stage was empty. A few weeks later, the holidays were approaching. My grandparents asked me a question that made my heart soar. Would you like to come home? This time, home didn't mean that house of lies. It meant their home, the one with the love and the history that was real. I drove there with a mix of nerves and excitement I hadn't felt since I was a little kid. Walking back into that house was the strangest experience of my life. It was the same structure, the same rooms, but the energy was completely different. The heavy, oppressive atmosphere was gone. It felt light. It felt clean. My grandparents had already begun making it theirs. Fresh paint, new photos on the walls, including one of me they'd framed, and my old room. They'd redone it for me. It wasn't a shrine to the past. It was a promise for the future. A new comforter, a desk for studying. It was a room that said, "You belong here. You are welcome here. Always." We hosted Thanksgiving that year. Chloe and her family were there. My loud, loving, chosen family. Some of my grandparents' friends and a few relatives I'd never met came too. The house was filled with noise, real noise, the kind of happy chaos that comes from people who genuinely want to be together. The smell of roasting turkey and pie, the sound of laughter echoing in the halls. It was everything that house had never been. I looked around the table, at all these faces, old and new, who had chosen to love me, to fight for me, to show up for me, and I realized something. The family I'd spent my childhood begging for, I had it all along. I just had to walk out of one door to find it waiting for me at another. I wasn't the girl who was kicked out anymore. I was the girl who built a new life, who uncovered the truth, and who finally found her way home. And let me tell you, the view from here, it's beautiful. You know, if you'd told me 2 years ago that I'd be sitting in this house, hosting a holiday, surrounded by people who genuinely love me, I would have laughed in your face. Or maybe I would have just cried. The path from there to here wasn't a straight line. It was a messy, painful, terrifying detour that felt like it was leading nowhere. But it led me here. I think about my mom, Jacob, and Sasha sometimes. I don't know where they ended up, and I made a conscious choice to stop keeping tabs. That chapter of my life is closed. The last I heard, Sasha and her boyfriend were scrambling to find an apartment they could afford on their own. No more free ride. No more built-in babysitters. They finally had to face the real world, the same one they so casually threw me into. And my mother? She had to face the consequences of a lifetime of choices, choosing a man over her parents, choosing a lie over the truth, choosing favoritism over fairness. She built her entire identity on a fragile fiction, and when it finally collapsed, all that was left was the bitterness she sent in that last email. It's a tragic story, in its own way, but it's not my tragedy to fix anymore. My story is different. My story is about the people who show up. It's about Chloe's family, who saw a scared kid and said, "You're ours now." It's about my grandparents, who spent years in the shadows hoping for a glimpse of me, and who finally fought like hell to pull me into the light. It's about a scholarship and a student loan and the grueling pride of building something yourself. Most of all, my story is about redefining what family means. It isn't always blood. It's the people who make you feel safe. It's the people who celebrate your successes and hold you up during your failures without keeping a scorecard. It's the people who see you, the real you, and love you fiercely for it. That house I grew up in? It's just a building. The four walls didn't make it a home. The people inside did. And for the longest time, the people inside made it feel like a prison. Now, with my grandparents in it, with laughter in the kitchen and love in the living room, it's finally become what it was always meant to be. A sanctuary, a harbor. They tried to kick me out to make room for their real family. But in doing so, they made room for me to find mine. So if you're out there listening to this, and you're in a situation that feels hopeless, where you're being told you're not enough, you're not real family, please hear me. Your value isn't determined by the people who fail to see it. Your family is out there. It might be the friend who asks if you're okay. It might be a teacher who believes in you. It might be a relative you haven't met yet, waiting for the right moment to find you. Keep building your own table. Someone will come and take a seat, and one day you'll look around and realize it's full,